Spectacular start. Amber, over to you.
Oh, thank you. I made that video, I think maybe 2 years ago for a presentation that I did down at the NZIPP conference. And it was quite a mission to put it together, but also it was quite nice to reflect on a decade of photography work, because often you just sort of keep going and going and going and producing work, and it's not that often that you kind of take a breath to and sit back and reflect on what you've done. So thank you for watching that. And I know that the music was like a little bit too epic sounding, but you know, it is what it is. Can I just get a bit of a, because it's so weird for me not to be in the same room as you guys. What are you guys all looking at my giant face up on a screen right now?
Absolutely huge.
Wonderful, wonderful. Not quite as large as it was on the Facebook Live that I did for the NZIPP a little while ago, hopefully.
Looks
I don't know if
wonderful.
I don't know if anyone caught that, but there was a bit of a techno glitch and my face was literally like this for like 45 minutes on the screen, and I didn't know. So I won't frighten you as much as I did all the Facebook Live people. Thank you very much to everybody who submitted their work and listened to the judging for your competition last week. I just thought that it was such a great opportunity to follow on from that nice and close and give a few examples of image finishing ideas. I'm not really sure in the room like what sort of levels of experience that we've got. So I can see you all. So could you please put your hand up if you are familiar with using Lightroom and you know how to. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, thank you. That's really good. And now put your hand up if you are familiar with using Photoshop. Okay, so most people are a little bit more versed in Lightroom. Looks like most people use that. Of the people who use Photoshop, could you please put your hand up if you feel that you're sort of beginner to mid-level? Pop your hand up now. Awesome. And then put your hand up now if you are, say, mid-level to I've been using it for a really long time and I know what I'm doing. A few of those. Okay, that's awesome. That just really helps me to know how to explain these things. Just one more question before I get started. Has anybody in this room used eVoto or a similar AI retouching software? Could you please put your hand up? Nobody. Okay, that's awesome. All right. So what I'm going to do today, tonight, I think I'm just going to do this with 4 images because otherwise I think it's just gonna, I don't want this to get repetitive, but the first image I'm going to do a Lightroom only process. Then I'm going to do a Lightroom and Photoshop editing combination. Then I'm going to do just Photoshop. And for the last one, if we've got time, I'm going to show you what an AI edit can do with a software called eVoto. So shall we stop looking at this ugly mug and shall we screen share? If I go down here and I say share, I'm really hoping that this is going to work. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so these are the four. Actually, I'll just open these ones in Lightroom instead. Oh, we kind of need that out of the way, don't we? I'll pop that over here. Okay, so these are the four images tonight that I am going to do a re-edit on. And can I also just reiterate, thank you very much to the photographers who have agreed to share their raw files with me. I know that it's a weird thing to be asked, but I really appreciate you allowing me to work on your images. So thank you. Also, just one disclaimer, if anyone would like further information on anything as I am going along on this talk, I am more than happy to be interrupted. So let's do the same thing as what we did last week. Please feel free to interrupt me at any time for a further explanation of anything, or if I'm going if I am not explaining things well enough or any questions, please feel free to interrupt me. Are you able to facilitate that, Andrew or Ian?
Yep, I think we can.
You
We just have
can?
to get
Okay,
them to
thanks,
ask.
guys.
I'm going to stand at the back and I've got the mic, so put your hand up and I'll give you the mic.
Okay, that's great. I can't, now that I've got Lightroom up on my screen, I can't really see you guys very well. So if you can interrupt me so I can hear you, that would be awesome. Okay, so the first one that I would love to start with is this man here. And so this one here is the JPEG that was submitted for the awards. And now let's just go to the original file. Okay, so this one here is the original raw file that has been brought into Lightroom here. I just want to show you, I spent a little bit of time on this yesterday, and I just want to show you an option. Now, there's many different ways that an image like this could be edited. This here is just one of those ways. And I used quite a variety of masks in Lightroom, which hopefully a few of you are familiar with, but I think that the masking ability in Lightroom has really massively improved over the last couple of years. And
Can I throw a question in there, Amber? How much have you stopped using Photoshop now that all that awesome masking is available?
really depends what it's for. So I would say quite a lot, but I still think now, especially with, for example, when you are selecting like a subject from a background, I still think that the masking in Lightroom is a little bit substandard, and up until very recently, the Photoshop masking was also a little bit substandard, but now that it does that connect to cloud thing, it seems to be really good. And I have been using the actual select subject mask, and I have had no issues with it lately. So it depends on the level of editing that the image requires for me. But certainly, it's certainly cut out a bit of Photoshop work for sure. I'm also just going to put a wee timer on for myself right now, because I've got a quite terrible tendency of taking way too long, and I don't want you guys to get totally bored. So I'm just going to chuck a wee timer on so that I can hopefully get through all of these images for you. Okay, so let me go back to this original file here. And I'm sure I probably won't get exactly the same result, but I'm going to see if I can replicate the process that I used. So into the develop mode here, the first thing that I did is I went up here, and the first most noticeable thing for me with this image is that the background is just extremely bright. So I've used the background mask tool here, and I've gone and brought the exposure down a little bit. But for me, I feel like, and it's a fact, the the brightest part of the image is where the viewer's eye is going to go to first and keep returning to. So in a portrait, if the brightest part of the image is the background, there is a weird kind of a disconnect between you want the viewer to be looking at your subject, but the background is so bright that it's fighting. And that's why I feel like in its original form with this image, the background is just so bright that it really dominates it dominates the viewer's attention. So that is a reason why I would like to bring the brightness of that background down. So I'm going to bring the highlights down and also the whites. And also the contrast I'd like to bring down, because another thing that definitely happens for a viewer is that primarily your eye will always go to the brightest part of the image first, but secondarily it will also always go to the most contrasting part of the image. So if you have a super contrasting background, that's going to really fight against your subject. In a portrait, you really want the viewer's attention to mainly be on the subject. So if we bring that contrast right down, that's going to help to mellow that out a lot. I'm also just going to bring the shadows down a wee bit in there. And let's see what the blacks are doing. Okay, I think we can afford to bring the blacks down just a smidge, but not too much. And maybe the exposure down a little bit in there too. Okay, those shadows might just be a little bit too much down there. Okay, so that has taken a lot of the brightness out of the background. The next thing that I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back up to my mask, and I'm going to have a go at selecting some parts of our subject here. I think this is a fantastic subject, this guy. He's got a lot of personality. So if we want to select the entire subject, we can choose select subject. Or if we want to choose parts of the subject, we can go select people. And to start with, I really want to focus on his black hoodie, because I remember from the image that was submitted that I felt like there was just such a lot of loss of detail in that black hoodie. So what I really want to do is try to bring a little bit of that detail out. So I'm going to go select the person, and the AI will find the person and then break it down into all of these components of the person. So we've got facial skin, eyebrows, eye, sclera, I think that is. All the options. And I think a relatively new one in Lightroom is clothes. So you can see if I hover over clothes and do that, right, I'm going to create that mask, and it's done a beautiful mask of his black hoodie. Now, just so I don't get myself lost, I'm going to start labeling these masks. So that one's hoodie, and that one is background, which I just always abbreviate to BG. Okay, so if we go to hoodie, the first thing I want to do is just have a look at the shadows. Okay, so I think the shadows are a really dominant part of this image here. So if we bring those shadows up a little bit, I don't want to make his hoodie look grey. I still want it to look black, but I just want to be able to see the details in it. So I'm not going to bring the blacks up. I'm going to drop those down a little bit so that we still feel like we have a black hoodie. And then I'm going to lift the highlights a little bit as well, so that we can start to see a lot more of the detail in there. Right, so when I'm editing in Lightroom, I'm always going back to my original image versus my edited image, so that I can check that I haven't gone too far on things. So what am I doing here? Okay, so we can see when we press the little slash key up the top, we can go, that's our original, and then that's our edit at the moment. That's our original, that's our edit. Okay, so this is starting to head in the direction that I would like. The next thing that I would like to do is to add a little bit more texture and clarity, I think, into his skin. So we're going to go back up here to our mask, create another new mask, select people, only one guy to choose from, and then I'm going to go facial skin. Okay, and I think I'm going to go facial skin and lips, actually. So that is pretty much all of the skin in there, right? And always a good idea if you know you're going to be having a few masks, it's always a good idea to label what they are so they're easy to go back and edit. Okay, now let us, just get me out of the way. By the way, guys, I'm working on my laptop screen today because my normal big screen that I work on doesn't seem to like being cooperating with Zoom or microphones or video cameras or anything. So that's why everything might look super cramped on the screen to you. Okay, so let's just check the exposure on that skin. I think it's looking pretty good. I am not trying to make this man look any younger or look beautiful in any way. I feel like this is a real character portrait, and I really want to draw out all of the elements of his character. So the lines on his skin, all of his wild beard and hair, and all of the texture in his skin, I want to accentuate that in a portrait like this. I'm not trying to make him look younger at all. So I'm going to bring, I think, the highlights down just a smidge and also some of the whites down a little bit so that we get the full texture within there. And then I'm going to boost the texture. There we go. So we can really start to see some of those details within his skin. And I'm also just going to boost that clarity a little bit. The clarity can be pretty wild. So I think I'm just going to put that to maybe 17. All right, so let's just have a look and check that we haven't gone too wild here. That's our original, and that's with a little bit of added texture and clarity. So I think that I'm pretty happy with that. You can really start to see some of the age spots and some of the lines, and it's just bringing out this guy's character a little bit more. Okay, the other really standout feature of this portrait is this wonderful beard down here. So we can also make a mask for his beard, which I'm pretty sure is facial hair down here. And I'm pretty sure that that one there is a relatively new feature on Lightroom. I don't think I've found that before. So they are updating the AI selecting abilities on this all the time, which is amazing. All right. Now I just want to really enhance the texture within the beard. So I'm going to lift that texture slider a little bit. I'm going to push the blacks down so that we really start seeing a bit more contrast in there. I might boost the contrast a little. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of whites within this beard. Yeah, there are. Okay. But I don't think I want to play with that too much. So maybe we lift the highlights just a smidge. Now, I've noticed when I've done this that a lot of color has come into that bottom part of the beard. So there's obviously a little bit of yellow in that area of the image. I feel like I've made that look a bit more pronounced than it really needs to be. So I am just going to drop the saturation. There we go. Look, he can go full gray on his beard, but I don't think we need to do that. I just want to drop the saturation a little bit on there, maybe 25 will do, just to take that yellow tinge out of it a little bit. So let's go back and check. We've got, you can see it looks like a very sort of a lot softer texture there now. And then you can really start to see the texture just to really pump it up so that you guys can see it properly. I'm just going to add a little bit more clarity in there as well. Oh, we can see those whites starting to blow out now. So I might just pull those whites down a smidge. There we go. Okay, I think that's looking good. Now, whilst we are in at 100%, I also really want to just take away a few of these distracting details. So in Lightroom, they've got this awesome tool called the Remove tool. If you go to the little eraser icon just up here and go on to Remove, we can see that little white dot is not really adding to the story in any way. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to remove this little white dot here. I really like a lot of the flyaway hairs that we can see all around this guy's face, all around here. So I'm not really, I don't want to remove any of that because I think that's an integral part of the portrait. If you were, say, doing a beauty edit on a young female for a totally different type of thing, like for a commercial edit, then you might want to look at removing all of those flyaway hairs, but I don't want to do that in this instance. I'm just going to take that wee dot away, that one, and oh, that was an accident. Hang on. Okay, so if you'd make a mistake, it's lagging a little bit. There we go. I can delete that. It's gone. Okay, now this little thing up here, I'm not sure whether that is part of our subject's skin or if it's a little flare. It's hard for me to tell. I'm going to assume for this that it's a little flare, and I think it's distracting. So I'm just going to remove that from here. If that is part of our subject's skin, please forgive me, and you as the original photographer will know. Okay. The only hair that I think is super distracting in this image is this long one down here that's kind of fallen out of his beard. I feel like it just doesn't quite work with the whole shape that the rest of the beard is making. So I am actually going to remove that one now. And the remove tool works really rather well, like that. Okay, so you could carry on and go as detailed as you want to in an image like this. How much time have we got left? Oh, not very long. Okay, so another thing that I just want to show you that I very, very regularly do on portrait images, especially, well, of either a single person or multiple people, sorry, is I very often do a gradient over the person's face, just a really subtle radial gradient. So I'll go in here and make a new mask. And I usually start somewhere in the center of their face and just drag it out, generally in a circle, unless there's a reason for doing an oval. And then I will just usually with exposure, or sometimes also, so I might with exposure just take that up, say 15. Then also with the shadows as well. And the reason that I do that is because, as we talked about earlier, the viewer's eye will always go to the lightest part of the image. And I think that just really helps to draw the eye in to your subject. It's sort of like a reverse vignette, and better than a vignette if your subject isn't perfectly in the center of an image. It's like it off-centers the vignette to be completely relevant to your subject in the middle of the image. Okay, so let's have a wee look at this guy. That's the original. That is where we are going now. Now, I've just decided right now that I think there's too much saturation in that background. So now I'm going to go back into my background layer like that. I think that the color that's in the clouds is really nice, but I don't want that. I feel like that's the wrong vibe for this image. So I'm just going to take that saturation down. And then I'm going to add a little bit more, say, blue in there to make it really like a cold, murky day. There we go. So just as an option. I know when I did my other edit, I also got a little bit more, I did a mask for the eyes for the actual interior part of the eyes, and I think I lightened them and added a little bit of contrast. And then I also did a couple of radial gradients around both of his eyes there. Oh, actually, that is worth showing you. I'll just show you one way to lighten the eyes, because this is quite a useful thing to know. So let's go back to 100% over here and do one more radial gradient to lighten a little bit of the darkness in those eyes. So I'm just going to do, there we go, like an oval gradient. So we'll match it, say, to his hood here, and then turn it around a little. Now, what I really want to focus on, I don't want that to focus too much on anything other than the shadows under his eyes there. So if we just go into those shadows and lift those a little bit, that's going to help his eyes to become a lot more prominent. However, I don't like the way that that is causing such a highlight on the top of his nose here. So I'm going to go back into this mask layer over here, and I'm going to go subtract. So you can see on here that you've got the radial gradient where you can see it. There we go, like that. Now I'm going to go subtract, and I'm going to use my brush over here, which I've got a full feather on, a low flow, and pretty much 100% density, I think. Oh, awesome. Now it's just disappeared. Where's my marker? Oh, there we go. Okay. And so I'm going to brush out the highlight that it is giving my subject's nose. Okay, so that is affecting the mask on here. So if we go back now to that mask, is it going to show us? Yes. Okay, so now we can see I've done that nice soft gradient around his eyes, and then I've subtracted that effect from being like going over his nose as well. So we can just see here, I can turn it off. There we go. That's how we were before, and then turn it back on, and now it's only affecting his eyes. So I'm not sure if you guys have had a play with that before, but it just gives you an immense amount of control in Lightroom that is quite new, and it's just really awesome. I did also decide in the end to turn this image to black and white. There's quite a few ways that you can do that, but one of the great ways is to go up here, black and white, and usually I go down and hit this auto slider down here and see what it's going to do for me. Okay, so I quite like that. I think that the blues are going to affect the background a lot. Yes, they are. So you can you can have a lot of control with playing around with something like that. Or if you feel like that skin is still just a little bit bright, then you could bring the oranges down on there. So I think that's still relatively different to this one. Where are we? It's not coming up yet. There we go. Oh, it's super different. So there's clearly a lot more contrast in that one. I don't know. Maybe I think there's too much contrast, and I actually kind of like this one a little bit better. I did also decide to crop this image. I think the original crop, if we go back here and have a look at the, let's have a look at the original. So this one over here is our original crop. I actually just really enjoyed. I'll get rid of that one now because I think that this one here is one of the more successful crops. I don't know. You could either leave those details in there if you want to show that your subject is on the land. When I first saw this image, I assumed that he was in a boat out at sea. So that may have been your original intention. I'm not sure, but I just quite liked having a little bit more of the ocean available in there, and I really felt like the curve of his beard and that kind of whole circular shape that goes around like that was made a lot more evident by chopping the top of his hoodie off. So that's why I chose that crop. But I think that's all that I wanted to show you on that image. So should we have a quick pause, and does anyone have any questions about any of that?
Questions, anyone? I've got a sort of philosophical question, if you want to put it that way. If you go back to the original unedited one, there's some people in the middle of the pier that you can even see them there on that guy. Right in the middle of the pier, there's a couple of people walking. What are your thoughts on removing things like that in the background that potentially compete?
Well, I think it is entirely dependent on the purpose of the image. If you were taking a documentary photo for documentary purposes, for a newspaper or for any other documentary purposes, I think that it's not okay to edit things like that. But if you are taking a portrait for the person, and for any artistic or any other reason, then I think the world's your oyster. And I think if you were to enter this into a competition, always firstly look at the rules of the category. So whether you're allowed to make edits like that or not. Often competitions will have like in-camera categories, so you have to really capture those things in camera, and that has to be authentic to your original capture. But if the category that you have entered allows retouching or image manipulation, then I would always take distracting elements out that don't serve the purpose of the image. So I don't think in a portrait like this that those people in the background really serve any purpose to this portrait, so I would totally take them out.
I'd like to say that he is my cousin. He was over from the Philippines, and we were doing a walk on the pier, and I said, I'd like to take your photo, can I? And
Well
he said,
done.
yes, sure. But
Oh, that's so nice.
he
And
was
what a wonderful portrait that you've now got of your cousin.
he's a scientist, a mad scientist, and
Oh, I think you've captured him so well.
yes, and that's what he's like. Yeah.
Awesome. I particularly love the beard, the wind in the beard.
So, mad scientist's your title, Diana. That's cool.
Totally. Nice work, Diana.
Anybody, any other questions? Thanks, Amber. Next one.
Okie dokie. So, right. So this one here is our next image. This one, is this the original? Yes. So this is our, oops. Here we go. This is the image that was submitted for the competition, and I just saw so much potential in this image. The skin is unfortunately quite blown out on my screen here, and I just felt like that really let the image down a lot. So I was so happy to have the opportunity to see the raw file of this image, because we can go in there and find what information is really available. Okay, so let's have a look. This here is the raw file as it is. And you can see that there's a big flare of light that is obviously coming from this window up here, which has been cropped out of the image that was submitted. Now, I actually thought that the crop of that image that was submitted was really quite good. It's quite effective. I'll just sub over quickly to this image here that I've already done a little Lightroom edit on, because I think you guys already know all of this stuff. The first thing that I did this is just a virtual copy of that same image. The first thing that I did was I dropped the highlights down a little bit, so that we can start to see some of the detail in her lovely face there. So you can see, oh, is it not showing me? Oh, it's not showing me because I have done a noise reduction on this image. Okay, so let's actually just go back to this one here. I don't want to do the noise reduction with you because it takes ages and I don't want to waste your time. But you can see, well, hopefully you can see that because it's such low light, this image is very noisy. So down here under the detail tab, I've done a denoise reduction, and I just did, I think I can click on it and it'll give me one option. Yeah, so I just did the kind of default 50 amount of noise reduction. And you can see when you move that, you can see, I'm not sure if you can see this level of detail, but it's very, very noisy through the shadowy parts. And you can see with that noise reduction that it's really gotten a lot of that noise out of the way. So that is what I've done. And then the only other things that I did to that image, actually, a couple of things that I pretty much always do, is I always remove chromatic aberration down under lens corrections, and I pretty much always enable the profile correction. So does anyone not know what chromatic aberration is?
Go ahead and explain it anyway.
Okay, well, full disclaimer, I am not a super technical photographer. So my explanation is almost certainly going to be challenged by someone who is more technically proficient than me, so just bear with me. It's the look that you get on the edges of contrasting elements within your photograph. And quite often it will be like a very bright green and a very bright magenta. And they're often just really annoying little elements that when you view an image at 100%, you can see those nasty little chromatic aberrations in there. Sometimes they can be other colors as well, but I think the most common ones I see are green and magenta. And so if your image happens to have that in there, by checking that box, you will remove it, hopefully. It almost always, as far as I can tell, it pretty much always does a good job when it's left on the auto setting. You can do that manually as well, but I don't think I've ever had a better result you doing it manually. And then profile correction is just all lenses have like unique little things about them that they will do to your image. And so that just compensates for any of those little intricacies that particular lens that you used has had. Sometimes I actually like the vignette or the slight distortion that some of my lenses use. So sometimes I don't always correct it, but image dependent. I probably would more often correct it than not. Anyway, is there anyone in the audience who's really disgusted at my explanation of chromatic aberration?
They're all happy. Well done.
Awesome. Let's carry on then. Okay, so those were the things that I did in Lightroom. What I'm going to do now, I've already exported that image and I have brought her into Photoshop over here. Sorry, the other thing that I did do is after I cropped it, I did a radial gradient in Lightroom over that window flare that was coming out there, just to sort of bring it down just a little bit. Okay, so in Photoshop, the first thing that I always do when I'm editing an image is I duplicate my background layer and I call it original. And then I take the visibility of that layer off, but it's just so that I can always go back in there and check my edited image against the original version. Now, I don't want to do too much to this lady, and I haven't actually done a trial on this to work out how well the subject select is actually going to work. I think the first thing I'm going to do is just bring those levels up to just see how much. Oh yeah, we do actually have quite a bit of, I'm looking at the definition between the subjects here and the background around there, because I do recall in that initial edit that was an area that was just bleeding straight into the background. So let's just have a crack and see what the subject selection does. So we go select subject. Let's see how well Photoshop manages this. I think in a recent update, it has started to use, oh wow, see, look at that. That is really quite impressive. it has found the back of her hair in there, despite the fact that it is black on black. And I think that it's done a pretty amazing job. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate that layer now, and I'll call that subject. And I'm going to pop a mask onto this so that any of the effects that we apply, we can differentiate those between the background and the subject. So the little mask button is actually, I'm going to pop it into a group to start with, and I'm going to put the mask onto the group up here. The reason I'm going to do that is so that all of the changes that I want to apply to the subject are all within that same mask, and we don't need to remask every layer. Does that make sense?
Lots of nodding.
Awesome. Okay, so one of the first things that I am going to do to our lovely, I'm going to say Chinese, I think, lady, is I want to do some dodging and burning. Now, I know I talked about dodging and burning a lot in the critique. I have got a set of actions that I use all the time for my portrait editing. It comes from it's called the Retouching series, and it is by Pratik Naik, Pratik, separate word, Naik. He used to be involved with the Portrait Masters with Sue Bryce, and I've done a lot of retouching education over the last probably 10 years, and I have really found that Pratik's retouching series is it's just the best non-destructive Photoshop editing that I have come across. It's really easy to go back in and tweak things if you've gone too far. However, all happened before the bulk of a lot of the current AI tools came out. So as far as entering competitions go, still a lot of photography competitions around the place will not allow you to use AI editing tools. So this is still a relevant way of editing for competitions. However, if you don't care about competitions and you just want to find the easiest and fastest and best way of editing, a lot of AI tools will do exactly the same thing as this, but a lot faster and easier. So I'm still going to show you this because I do think it's still relevant. So dodge and burn, I just click on the action. And what it does for me is it gives me a curves layer of a dodge down here, which is essentially just a curves layer, and that center point has been lifted up to, what does it say, 125? It's lifted up to output 166. Not super relevant, but just kind of up a smidge. And then the burn layer is kind of just the opposite of that. It's a curves layer that's taken that center point and it's brought it down a little bit, down output about 80. But just a general curve like that. And then that color fill in there is just a guide that they give you. I actually don't use it very often because I don't feel like it's all that helpful. But I'll just eliminate a little bit of that. Okay, so we're going to zoom in here. I'm going to start with the dodge. Now, I always go on it's just all so cluttered in here, isn't it? I'm just going to be on a normal soft brush. I'm going to bring that size down. Oh, no, about to there. It's just a normal soft brush with complete softness. No hardness in there. And I want my opacity to be 100% and my flow to either be 2 or 3%. There is a reason for having your opacity at 100% rather than your flow. And it's something that I learned a long time ago, and it is totally evading me what the reason is right now, but it's something to do with smoothness. Anyway, if you're feeling, I actually normally use 2%. I'm going to go on 3% today because I just want you guys to be able to see the effect a little bit more easily. Okay, but I'm going to start on my dodge layer. Normally I choose 2% because it's a lot more, it's just more gradual and it gives you maximum control. But you'll be able to see through here, hopefully. There we go. You can see it's actually just starting to make some of her hair details in there look a little bit milky because it's lightening those blacks. But what it is doing is it's giving us a little bit more definition from the background, which is nice. Okay, and I might also just lighten a little bit along here so that we can really see the shapes that her fabric is making all through there against that black background. And I'm not sure what this embroidered part of her bodice is called, but it's very beautiful and I just want to make that really stand out as well. Okay, so I'm just conscious of time. I don't want to take too much. Then I'm going to go onto my burn layer. And this is really why I'm doing a dodge and burn on this image, because we can see how hot all of her skin is through this area and through here. And when we do this and just burn all of those really hot areas in, then we start to see a whole lot more of that beautiful texture of her skin right through there. I know there's also a really hot part on her fingers just up here, so I'm going to burn those in as well. Right, now if we go back like this, and then we do with that dodge and burn layer, we can go, that's what we were before, and that's where we're at now. Now, it's absolutely not perfect. This is still too milky around the back of her head here, but you can see that it's just brought those exposures into line a little bit more, and I think that is really helping. I think I've gone way too much of the lightning through her wrist here. So the awesome thing about this method is that you can go back, you can see that is the mask that I've done through here, and I can just change my brush to a black brush. So down over here, I'm going to make my foreground color black, and I'm going to bring that depth of shadow all the way back in here so that I haven't overexposed that part too much again. Okay, I'm just going to do a really fast little background distinction on here. I'm fairly sure that the original file that we had, it was super duper black in the background. I don't think we want to go too black with that, but I am just going to bring the levels into line a little bit more. I actually quite like the, so you can see I've done that levels layer just above my background layer, so it's not affecting my subject, it's only affecting the background there. I do still, I kind of quite like the gradient that we've got going on through here. I don't think I love the color in there, so maybe I could add a color layer in over here, and I might just go and fill it with black. So we'll go layer, I usually do this by a shortcut key, so it's just Shift F5. There we go, and we'll go black at 100%. Okay, why has that? Oh, there we go. Okay, so that's just taken all of those weird colors out of there, but I'm going to pop a mask onto that layer. I'm going to make my mask black, and then I'm just going to do a white gradient, a radial gradient on here to take those weird colors out of that lighter part around the background. See how that's worked? So you can see there's like blues and pinks and greens in that without it, and then it's just taken it all back to a desaturated neutral. So you could do all sorts of things with that. You could also make that a much lighter color through here. I'm just giving you an example of how you can use these same gradients if you wanted to instead emphasize the light that was coming through here, you could do something like this and just at a lower opacity. Oh, we can see a whole lot of banding happening there, so that's probably not ideal on this particular image. But it just gives you an idea of how you can edit backgrounds separately to your subject. Okay, I think that we should, let's just have a quick check up here. I think, so this one is the original. You can see how blown out all of this area is through here. And then in this one here, despite this milkiness, I would probably, with the situation here, I would actually take that milkiness back to what it was originally, and I think I would lighten the background instead, just slightly, so that you can see definition behind there instead. But I won't I won't spend any more time on this one because I think that I can show you some of those editing techniques a little bit better on the black and white image that I've got coming up next. Does anybody have any questions on this image before we move on?
Yep, me again. Again, it's kind of almost a philosophy question. I was intrigued by the way you changed the direction you took that image, but with those lighter background, darker background kind of things. How do you find that sort of thinking evolves during your processing? Is it something that you actively change, or when you take this image to Photoshop, do you have, I have 4 things that I want to do with it, and that's what I'm coming in here to do, and then do you come back and say, actually, the background, do you know what I'm trying to get at here? Just the fact that you can change the picture radically with a sort of a different style of process. Does that happen much when you get to Photoshop, or do you always know what you're going to do?
This might feel like a cop-out answer, but it really depends on the purpose of what you're editing the image for. I think because I primarily work in making portraits, for me, it's the most important that you are doing everything in the image to really make your subject stand out. Oftentimes, the environment that my subjects are in is kind of secondary importance to the subject themselves. So I do have a real philosophy when editing. About simplicity is beauty in a way. I really quite strongly feel that if there are elements within the image that are distracting away from your subject and they're not adding to the narrative of an image, then I would often either minimize them or take them away if I have got full control over the editing. Because distracting elements just take the viewer's eye away. Like, for example, on this image here, in the state that it's currently in, I find this white paint, I think it is, or whatever this is, on the stairs over here, I find that really distracting. It does keep drawing my eye now that I've lightened the background a little bit. So if I was editing this for a portrait competition, I would probably remove that. I don't mind the horizontal lines of the stairs because I think that helps to give a sense of place, and they are therefore like an important component of the image that isn't distracting. But that white thing on the stairs I do find quite distracting. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's an awesome answer. Thank you for that. Has anybody else got any questions while we're on this one? All done. Thank you.
All done? Okay. So let's just quickly flick back to Lightroom over here. The next image that we had in the setup was this guy here. Okay, now this one was presented to me in a, not him, here we go. This is the presentation that I originally saw of this image, and I don't know what that weird square is there. That's weird, isn't it? Go away. Oh, there we go. I really like the black and white. I think that serves this image really well, and I remember that the critique that I gave about this was that the Ridgeline logo felt a bit awkward because it was kind of right on the edge of the frame, and that we can lean into the processing a little bit more on this man's face to really bring out those character features. So I also think the background's a wee bit distracting over here because the contrast of that is competing with our subject a little bit there. So what I've done, I'll just quickly go over back to this guy here. So this is the original raw file of this image. If we go into our develop mode, I decided to just crop this to a 4:5, which I think is very similar to what the original photographer presented the image in. I do think that works pretty well. It's like a little bit low, but let's just work with it. Now I decided also to remove a couple of things. Let's just go and see what I didn't duplicate it. That was clever. Okay, that's fine. I think I just may have used the remove tool I think I removed the ridgeline logo with that tool and maybe a couple of distracting elements that were around this guy's face before I made my PSD. But this one, I really want to just focus on the Photoshop editing for this. So let's get rid of this lady over here and go back to this guy. All right, so I'm going to do a fairly normal portrait edit that I would normally do. So as I did before, always duplicate the background layer, all that original, so that we've got a really good sense of being able to go back to our original, which I find super important because I definitely have quite a strong tendency of taking images just too far. So I do a full retouching setup, which I'm just going to hit the button and it's going to make a bunch of layers for me. And then I will explain to you what those layers are. You can make these all manually yourself and you can set your own actions up if you want to. I found that the amount of value that I got out of purchasing the retouching series and then the actions that you just get with buying the series from Pratik's site was one of the best investments that I've ever made, and all of the actions that you get with it and all of the info is just awesome. So I'm going to hit that there. So what it does for me, it's going to give me a clean layer. So the first thing that I do is a heal and a clone. I'm only going to do this really quickly and I'm just going to get rid of that so I've got a little bit more screen space. I go up to, I usually tend to work at 100%. And I'm going to go onto my heal layer that goes at the bottom. I'm going to press J because that's my healing brush. And I'm not going to do heaps of these, but I am just going to get a couple of those most distracting little elements out of there. Now, I don't want to do too much because he's not supposed to be a perfectly clean, pristine guy. He's real. But I just want to take a few of those more distracting elements out a little bit. I actually kind of like most of the stray hairs that he's got all around there. I don't think we need any of those funny little white dots, and anything that is just a little bit distracting in the background I would get rid of at this stage. So that is distracting. There's some weird pixels going on in there. I'm going to leave all the rest of that, and you can go as detailed or as high level as you want to with that. The next clean goes up to the clone tool, so I go onto my clone stamp over here and I can see where Lightroom did the remove option through here, that it's done some kind of funky things to the pixels in there. So, this is what I neglected to explain earlier. These are all working on blank layers above the original file. So a really crucial thing if you are setting this up yourself, really need to get this out of the way so I can show you on my screen. Go away. I'm going to have to just bring that Photoshop tab down so that you can see it. Okay, so you can see with your brush, there's this option up here that says current and below. It has to be set to current and below for this to work. If it's only set to current layer, it's not going to sample any of the pixels below it. And the working on these blank layers and this non-destructive type of editing is not going to work for you. So that there has to be set to current and below. Crucial to know. Let me put that back up to there. Okay. Right, I'm just going to go back to where we are. So on my clone tool, I'm just pressing S, which is my shortcut key to use this. And I'm just going to, now I always use the same methodology with cloning as I do when I'm using a dodge and burn mask. So 100% opacity and then either 2 or 3% flow. I'll go up to 3 so that you guys can just see it easily. So I'll sample a good bit of that, and then I'm just going to paint over some of those pixels that were looking a bit fake and a bit weird through there. And I won't spend too long on that. But that is just going to take a little bit of those pixels out. Hey, just a question. What is the projector quality like that you guys are seeing? Can you actually see the difference that this is making? Because I know a lot of projectors.
It's a 4K projector, so it's pretty good, but it is some distance away, so we can see it, but it's not like sitting in front of a screen, right in front of us.
Yeah, okay, all right, cool. So you might have to use your imaginations just a wee bit with that. Okay, so they were all fairly minimal. There's not a lot else that I want to do with the clean layer. So I'm just going to take that on and off. You can see that is the original, that's with the clean. So you can imagine, do you know what? There is actually one more thing that is really distracting me, and that is that very bright hair in through there. So I am just going to go back into my heel there, and I'm just going to get rid of that because it's so bright, it keeps drawing my eye, and I want my viewer's eye to be going to this man's face, not to any distracting elements on the side. Okay, I'm just going to skip over the dodge and burn and the color fix layers for now, and I'm just going to go up here. I always change this help layer to, I call it global, because I am applying those to everything. And I'm going to turn that on now, but I'm going to turn the grain off. So I've got the black, it's just a color fill to make it black and white. Sometimes this can be really helpful when you're dodging and burning, and I know that I'm going to make this image black and white in the end. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop back down here and I'm going to see what Photoshop does with doing a select subject. So we go select subject, and how well is it going to do against that background? It's thinking, it's thinking. Oh dear, the spinning wheel of death. That's annoying. Can you guys still hear me? Can you guys still hear me?
We can hear you and see you. Your share screen's gone away.
I'm just going to try to push that back on. I'm not sure why, but my Photoshop's just frozen. Okay, that's really annoying. Maybe we will skip ahead to the eVoto image, and I will close Photoshop down and come back to it, eh? Okay, I'll come back to that at the end. Let's go across to this lady here. I thought that this lady was a perfect candidate to show you the power of what eVoto can do. So I am going to, I'm actually not going to do anything in Lightroom. I am just going to export this as a TIFF so that we can, do you know what? I might just export it as a JPEG because it'll be a wee bit faster and at full resolution. Okay, to show you what the editing power of eVoto can do. Okay.
Can you use it as a plugin? So like a direct export from Lightroom?
So it's a separate app, eVoto.
Yep.
I've got it down here as an app on my desktop. And I think that, I don't know, I've had it for a long time, and you can, from memory, I think you buy credits to it. There's definitely a few people get grumpy with it, because what it doesn't plug in to either Photoshop or Lightroom. It really is its own separate thing. You can't, as far as I'm aware, you can't put raw files into it. You can't put PSDs into it. You can only do JPEGs and TIFFs. And when I'm doing my normal work, I always use TIFFs just because there's more information in them and it handles the TIFFs really well. But no, it's not a plugin. There might be plugin options for different ones. Right, I'm just going to bring that into eVoto. And I am not showing you eVoto and saying that it is the be-all and end-all and that it's the best AI software out there or anything like that. It's just one that I'm familiar with, and I know that quite a few NZIPP portrait photographers use it. It's very much portrait focused. It's not really for other types of imagery. And there are just there's been a lot of development in it. So I'm not going to focus too much on the color adjustment side of it, because that's something that I actually don't really use in here. The only side of this that I really use, there's two. I think that the color adjustment side, you'd have a lot more control in Lightroom. But the portrait retouching part of this is really quite powerful. So the first thing you do is you go down onto this palette here, portrait retouching, and it automatically tells you that it's a female. You can go on to individual if you want to, but this really works pretty well. So there's a whole bunch of recommended presets that you can try. Just to give you an example, you can do a natural edit. There we go. Can see that that hasn't kind of done anything too crazy. We could go to a high-end edit. That's kind of really flattened her skin out quite a lot, and it's done some kind of quite cold colouring in there. You could do, let's get my face out of the way. What's another? So you could do a lifestyle portrait edit. So what I often do is depending on what the purpose of the photo is, if it's for a commercial thing, then you can kind of push it a lot more. If it's for a personal portrait, then I think you really want to keep a lot of you really want it to look like the person. But sometimes, especially with the subjects that I photograph, I sometimes get particularly females who have real kind of body hang-ups, and they request particular types of things on their body that they want edited. And so if we agree to do that, then I wouldn't change things on my clients' faces without them requesting it. But it's really awesome to have the ability to do something like that. So let's just see if we can find, yeah, there we go. So it just gives you a whole bunch of preset edits on there that you can go through and have a look and see if any of those kind of float your boat. But I'm just going to go back to no effects because I'm not interested really in doing too much in the way of color edits. What I do want to do is show you the power of some of these skin retouching. That is pretty amazing. So there is the first slider is freckles and acne. I often bring that up to about there. I have a real pet hatred of removing people's freckles because I kind of love freckles. This beautiful girl doesn't really have any, but I always take the freckles off because all I'm really interested in editing are acne spots, which are temporary, right? So I leave the acne up fairly high. There's also an option here for mole removal. So she also doesn't really have any moles, but for example, in commercial, you might want to have that on, but maybe in a portrait edit, you probably would want to have that off so that you're not affecting her moles in any way. Then the next really powerful thing is the reduce face shine. I think that is just ever so slightly too close. I'm just going to go to 50% so that we can see her whole face. So I'll show you what it does all the way up here. To be honest, her face is actually very, very flatly lit in this image. So the face shine isn't doing too much to it. But if you have an image where you've got some really annoying bright hot spots on your subject, this reduced face shine is just magical. They, I think, take ages to edit normally in Photoshop, and the reduced face shine is like so fast. It's great. She's got some very, very slight dark circles there, but hardly anything, and she's hardly got any eye bags, so I'm not going to do anything with that. This one here is actually also quite good. There's the lip wrinkles and flakes. So just about all humans have some little imperfections in their lips. And if their lips are a wee bit dry, that can be quite a time-consuming thing to retouch out. So you can, there we go. That takes all texture out of her lips, which I think looks ridiculous. So you'd only do maybe a little bit. There we go. So maybe 20 just to soften that texture through there a little bit. Now, one of my favorite features of this software is the double chin removal. So I have got quite a few chins myself, and it's a particular pet hatred of mine in photos that I see of myself. And I think that a lot of females feel the same. So the double chin slider on this thing is really amazing. This girl basically doesn't have a double chin anyway, so it's not actually showing you the full power of this edit, but you can see even bringing it up to there, it's actually, so that's the original file there, and that is just giving her face a little bit more definition from her neck and giving her face a little bit more shape, which I think is working really quite well. Now, she's so young, she basically doesn't have any lines. There's a couple of smile lines that we could soften in there, but I don't really think that we need to do anything to that at all. So I'm going to put that slider back up. That was called blemish removal. All of that functionality was under blemish removal. Then we can go down to skin retouching. So this is where the dodging and burning comes in. If you are a crazy perfectionist like me and you enjoy dodging and burning and sitting there for hours and really getting it all exactly right as you want to, then go for gold, do it manually. But if you don't enjoy it, or you just don't have time to do that, then the dodge and burn tool on here is amazing. You can even out skin tone with the dodge and burn here. So let's see how it does that. She's just very flat, so it's not doing a lot on here because there's not a lot of evening to do. But what there is that would be quite nice to do is just to give her face a little bit more structure. So we're going to sculpt her face with the dodge and burn instead through here. So there we go. We can bring that sculpt right up, and we can make it less about facial features and make it more about facial contours. Okay, I personally don't like using smoothing in any way because I enjoy the real texture of skin still being able to be seen. One of the next things, I'm just gonna see what the body. Nah, let's leave that. There's not enough of the skin showing. Oh, I can hear myself on echo. I've just noticed that it's 9:15. Do you want me to carry on?
Yep.
All right. I'll just show you a couple of the features on here that I use really often. So this one here, skin texture, is amazing. You can dictate the glossiness of your subject's skin. So you can go full matte on here, which it essentially is anyway. You can go satin, which is going to give her a little bit more shine, or you can go full dewy. And there we go. So you can see the difference between dewy and satin. I'm just going to go dewy so that you can really see it. Now, I think this girl's obviously got some quite light makeup on. I'm just going to see if the face complexion does much. Yeah, you know what? That is actually bringing a little bit more color back into her skin. So the Unify face complexion takes different areas of the skin having different colors, and it just mixes them all together and unifies it into a consistent color. If you do that on the face, I also highly recommend that you do it on the body so that everything matches. And then if you want to, so I am not suggesting that you change the color of anybody's skin. That would be weird. But what you can do, if the skin is like overly bright like this, you can use this tool here to add a little bit more like tone back into the skin. So you can choose like a really neutral tone, say like this one here. Let's have a look. That one, or I think I like that slightly warmer one in here. So you can see if you went fully up like that, that's kind of really changing the color of her skin a lot. But if you're just using a subtle amount of it, it's just taking that real white look away from her skin. I can show you there. That is the original, that everything's just looking a lot flatter. And then that in there is giving her a little bit more of just a little bit more color in her skin and a little bit more depth to her skin tone. Likewise, if someone's face is quite underexposed, which is absolutely not the case here, the skin radiance slider is actually really awesome, and it can just help to bring a little bit more light into the skin if it's been underexposed a little bit. If you feel like your subject looks quite grey and needs like to be slapped around the cheeks a little bit, then you can add a little bit more rosiness into their complexion. Maybe not a full flush like that one, but just a little bit more can be really nice just to bring a little bit more life back into them. Okay, there are all sorts of amazing things that you can do under the facial reshape section. Personally, if I open up that tab, I go down a rabbit hole that I really struggle to get myself out of. And in a portrait, especially, well, in any portrait that's for a person, I think that that's really a bit of a moral dilemma, whether you want to even up her eyes and lift, like give her chin a little bit more prominence, or shrink her jawline a little bit, or anything like that. So I'm not going to do that to this girl because I think that she is just beautiful the way that she is. But if you are interested in the functionality of facial reshaping, there is a crazy amount of stuff that you can do, and you basically have just full control to do kind of anything. It's alarming. But also kind of amazing if you are trying to create a character portrait that you're not trying to represent somebody as their authentic self. Okay. We can't see a lot of her teeth, so there's not really a lot to edit on here. We could potentially, I can just show you that it selects them and whitens them. Looks like it's really struggling to find the teeth because there's not a lot in there. But if you had a portrait with a big smile, you can do all sorts of great things to the teeth. Right, eyes. Almost always in a portrait, you need to lighten and brighten the eyes just a little bit. It's a really easy thing to overdo. And I think that when this photographer photographed this girl, they have put a reflector down under their chin, and that reflector has become the primary catch light in this girl's eyes. I don't love that, so I'm going to see if I can use ePhoto to cheat that a little bit. So I'll show you the full brightness. There we go. That's obviously way too much. No good. So we'll just go a little bit about up to there. Now, with the software, you can control the brightness that is in the whites of the eyes, the reflection, the iris flare, everything. So I'm going to bring that reflection part down as much as I can. The iris area, I'm going to bring that down as much as I can. And let's just see. I think what I'm really aiming to do is I'm really aiming to brighten the whites of the eyes a little bit. Here we go. So I'm just going to lift those a little bit, but I'm trying to minimize the impact of that reflector that you can see in her iris. So I think that's a very subtle version. Let me just do it a little bit more so we can see it. Brightness up to there. Okay. The remove glasses glare is amazing if you do headshots. That's just a really time-consuming thing, and ePhoto does an incredibly fast, good job of it. Same with red vein removal. It can just clean up any red veins within the whites of someone's eyes so well. It's awesome. What you can do in a situation like this is you can actually add in a catch light. Now, a catch light in someone's iris is one of the key things that really helps to bring life into their eyes. So let's just go in at 100%. You can still see, I think probably the only way to get rid of that reflector would be to retouch that manually in Photoshop. But I'll just have a look on here and show you some of the options for adding a catch light if you wanted to. So there we go. We can do, I'm just going to choose the general ones. That adds a little bit more in. That looks weird. That's actually kind of nice because it kind of complements the other catch light quite well. I don't love that. That one's also quite nice and subtle. And that one freaks me out. So there we go. I'm going to choose that one there so we can have a look. We can go, okay, her eyes do look a little bit dead, and in there it's giving us a little bit more of the catch light. You can also change the amount of the catch light that you want to be in there, and I think you can also even change the exact placement of it. You can even do that separately on one eye compared to the other, so there is a pretty incredible amount of functionality and control that you can have. Now, there's two more tabs that I'd love to show you. One is makeup and one is hair. Are you guys okay for me to carry on?
We're all keen on hair.
We're all keen on hair. All right, well, let's just do that, shall we? So I'll just bring this back to 50%. Okay, so we can see the majority of the girl's hair. So we'll open up the hair tab here. Now, the hair part line, often that is skin. This one is a dye job that might need to be done. Let's just see what it does to the hair part line. Yeah, so normally, the hair part line actually just darkens the skin a little bit, so it makes it like not look like such a bald part. You can lift on just about all females. I like lifting the hair volume up a little bit. It just makes the hair look a little bit more like it's been styled, and it gives the crown up here a little bit more volume. You can control the volume at the side independently, so you could give a little bit more volume on that side over there, and if you wanted to, you could bring that one in, or you can just push it out and we can go full 80s. Now, the hair line up here along her forehead, I try not to change this too much because this is quite integral to somebody's appearance, but sometimes it can look slightly weird depending on someone's head angle. So I don't really think that needs to be altered on this image. But the most magical thing, which saves you so much time, is amazing. It is called, where is it? Why can't I find it? Here it is, stray hair removal. Okay, so watch this. See all those flyaway hairs? Da, da, da. gone. Now, she looks a wee bit cut out right now because I've gone all the way up to 100. So I'm just going to bring that down to, say, 70. So we go in 3/4, so it's a little bit more natural. And you can choose whether you want this to be going within the figure outline. So that's everything inside her hair. I leave that up quite high because it's nice to clean up any stray hairs going across that way. And then without beyond the figure outlines, I bring that down a little bit. So you can just leave a few of those in there if you want to. Maybe that's a little bit too many. That's still looking a little bit fluffy, isn't it? So go maybe up to about there. Okay, so now you can see if, say, for example, this was a headshot for something, I find in that original image that the stray hairs are one of the most distracting things that really catches my eye. And it's really just because it's such a contrasting tone to the background that it's on. But when you look like that, go back to go back to fit. You can just see that that has just lifted the retouching of that image into a slightly more polished look. Can you bear with me and can I show you two really cool things on the makeup part?
Keep going.
Shut up. Okay. This is so handy if you don't have access to a stylist and you're not good at doing makeup yourself. This is such an amazing tool because you can just have a fresh-faced person and then you can apply the makeup to the right level that you want to afterwards. And then you can sync it across all of your chosen images for that shoot and it just works amazingly. It also isn't going to have like crusty mascara or makeup that's applied badly is usually 1,000 times worse than no makeup. So I find this particularly helpful. Now the contour is pretty cool. I'll just go back a little bit. That's a little bit too close. The contour is available on her skin. Normally there's oh no, that must be in something else. Okay, don't worry about that. Eyebrow makeup is going to choose her natural eyebrows and just darken them. And that I really like because a lot of the time they really help to frame someone's face. And I think a lot of people look better with slightly stronger eyebrows. Okay. You can apply eye makeup. She's already got some on here, so I'll just show you quickly what it can do. But you've got the ability to do different types of eyeshadow, eyeliner. You can change the dimensionality of it, so you can kind of do a very dramatic look, or you can just keep it quite subtle and soft. The world is your oyster. Lip makeup, we can slightly deepen her lipstick if we want to. You can change the dimensionality, which just kind of, it's almost like a clarity thing. It's like it makes the shadowy parts slightly more shadowy and the brighter parts brighter. You can make it a little bit more saturated. You can kind of just do anything. Okay, so the two things that I really would love to show you and that I use a lot is blush. So I even sometimes use this on men because it really just helps somebody look healthier if they have got a slight bit of color in their cheeks. I'll just lift this up so you can kind of see all the different options. I don't know who puts blush on their nose. That's weird, but there we go. I quite like that one. I think that one suits her really nicely. So you can see it's just bringing a little bit of color into her cheeks, and I'm just going to bring it up maybe to about 50%. So you can see on there, it's all like very, very white. And now she's got a bit more color. And then the last thing that I really want to show you that I think hopefully you'll love is eyelashes. Okay, you can go just a nice natural look like that. You can go full drag queen, cat's eyes, anything you like. But I often with like a high-end portrait retouch, I used to individually give people extra lashes. And I got to the point with my makeup artist just asking her to not put false eyelashes on anybody, because they never look right in a close-up portrait, and it was the bane of my life. And now all of these are available to add in. They look really, really natural, and you can tweak them if you want to individually on each eye, upper and lower. You can just have full control. So lots of these I think look really nice. I'm just going to go with that one there because it opens her eyes nicely. So you can see that's the original. That's the ePhotos quick edit. And what you can do, if you've got, say, 20 or 100 images of the same girl, you can make a preset of the images of the portrait retouching that you've done, and then you can easily sync that across all of your photos. So you only have to do that to one image, and then you can sync it across.
So does this software, it's like you buy certain credits for it? It's easy to get software? Tell us how that works.
Yeah, it's easy to get, and the good thing is, if you want to have a play with it, you don't have to, you can just download it and you can have a play with it, and you can do all of these edits, and you can like learn how to use it, and you only have to start paying when you choose to export your images. So you can see here, this is with the before, there's no watermarks on it. With the edited image, they've got ePhoto watermarks all over it. So if people want to take a screenshot of that, you can do that, but you can't export the full resolution file with all of those edits back out of this app until you have paid. But it's really inexpensive. It's like a few cents per image.
This looks like something you could spend weeks in front of your computer
you really
playing
can.
and playing and
and
playing.
I
It's
would just
dangerous.
like to say a serious warning with that facial reshaping. Don't go down that rabbit hole. I mean, you can try it, and you can see how perfect you can make people look, or how weird you can make people look. It is quite fun. But if you are actually trying to edit a bunch of photos, don't try and perfect the symmetry of people's faces. It's silly and it's not necessary, and it will drive you mental.
That's awesome, Amber. Has anybody else got any questions before we let it go and have a glass of wine or a cup of tea? Glass of wine, I'm going to suggest. More questions? Anybody? Well, I just want to once again say thank you very much for spending the evening with us at CPS. That was just fantastic. All sorts of really cool things we saw there, and I'm pretty sure that the people who own those images are going to run away home to their computers and try to do an Amber edit on them tonight, I suspect. So thank you for that.
I'm so sorry that the Photoshop one didn't work. And I'll do an edit on that, and I'll send it back to you so that the person who owns that image can have the... Does the person who owns that image, do they know how to use Photoshop?
Hang on, I'm going to pass the mic.
I've got about a 12-year-old version of Photoshop Elements. I'll tell you what, you could just finish my photo and email it back to me and I'll enter it straight away. Don't worry.
I was just going to offer that I could send you the open PSD so you could follow it, but I don't think you'll be able to open it because I've got the latest version of Photoshop. You won't be able to open it in Elements, but I'll send you a JPEG anyway.
Oh, that'll be neat. Thanks very much. That was a great night.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right, thank you again, Amber. Big round of applause, and we'll let it go.
I hope that you got something out of it.
We didn't. Oh, thank you.
All right. Cheers. See ya.
Bye. Well, I've got a couple of things before we go. I know that went on a bit longer, but I think it was worth sitting and waiting for. Hopefully everybody agrees. Just some notices and things we want to finish with. But the first one is an introductory talk about the Laurie Thomas Winter School, and we've got a teaser from Mike. So can we run the teaser, please? Wrong one. Okay, we'll leave that up there. Take a quick photo. Oh, can we put the JPEG back up? And if anybody wants to take a quick photo of that with their phone and then go to the website, like I say, the enrolments are open for the Laurie Thomas. In fact, Shirley, can you tell us a thing or two about how that's going?
Hi folks, so I'm Shirley. I've only been on one winter school, but I'm helping organise this one. So, but I'll be there at the winter school, and if you've got any queries between now and then, that's fine. Thank you to all those who have already registered. We're up to about 22 already of the 32 spaces, so get in quick if you want to come. Please do come if you've never been to one and you're thinking about it. I went to my first one last year and it was great. You get to know people from the club, you get lots of tips, and just have a really great time. Lots of great photos. It's late now, so I think that's, unless anyone's got any burning questions. No, that's cool.
Thanks, Shirley. Yeah, and once again, just I want to reiterate that highly recommended thing. The next thing I've got a request, again, it relates to landscape, and that's the New Zealand Landscape Salon, which we are running, which is later in the year. We are doing some work on modifying the data entry system that we've used previously. So we want to seriously test the new system. So before we get to, we've got like 4 to 6 weeks, we want to get it all sorted by the end of the June. We would like people to make some entries, and I'm going to send you over the next few days a link to a jot form entry system that we want to try out. It's a reasonably simple thing to do, but I want everybody to go and have a look at it with virtually no instructions, and if you can figure out a way to break it or do something wrong, I want you to do it. So I want you all to have a bit of a go. The part of this that it's a bit of a tricky thing is that in order to enter, in order for us to see things, you have to click a PayPal link and you have to pay some money. Basically the bill comes to about 80 cents, or is it $1? Something like 80 cents if you enter the 6 images. So you've got a choice of what you enter, and if you enter, you'll be paying 80 cents to PayPal, and that'll come through to the CPS account. We probably get about, I think it's 40 cents, was it, of it? About half of that anyway. But yeah, so it's one of those sort of standard fee things. So the bottom line is you're going to lose 80 cents and you're not getting it back. But we will give the money that we make from this test system to Dennis for chocolate biscuits. So it'll come back in chocolate biscuits. So I want everybody to go and have at least a go. There's no reason you can't do 2 or 3. If we can put 300 images into this database and test it, that'll be great. So an email coming about that. Yeah, Di? No, the point of the PayPal thing is it'll just click to your credit card. So that's kind of the idea. Yeah.
How will the email get sent out? Will it just be sent out to members?
It'll be sent out to members with a link in it. You can, so I'll send a Facebook thing to say it's coming, and then we'll get an email to all members with a click link in it. We just have to do a couple more things to set it up. Okay, that's all the notices. Just a couple of things about club stuff. Remember that is entry for tonight for PI number 4 landscape, and next week is the C grade entry for the prints and projected images. Next week's program we're going to start at 7 o'clock with an honours review. We did really well in PSNZ honours this time, so we're going to have all the sets of the people who've achieved their honours. We'll put them up, the print sets, and we'll project the projected ones, and we'll have a bit of a discussion about that, and that's followed by print number 2. The other thing I wanted to mention was tonight was supposed to be the second of John Suckling's things, and you're probably all aware that he was crook last week. He ended up for a day in hospital with pneumonia, and he's got a blood clot in his lung, but it's all good now. He's being well treated at home and happy, so he's proposing to shift his presentation to the 25th of June. So mark that one on your calendar. That'll be well worth coming to. Righto, thank you for your patience. It was a really good night tonight. We'll see you next week.